Frederic Pierucci's life was permanently changed on April 14, 2013. He was a successful executive at Alstom, a French power and transportation corporation, with a happy family and a bright future ahead of him. When his plane landed at John F. Kennedy International Airport on that day, he was arrested by the FBI for his alleged role in a 2003 to 2004 corruption scandal involving Alstom in Indonesia. 5 years later, in December 2018, Meng Wanzhou, Huawei's CFO, was arrested in Vancouver at the request of the United States on charges of conspiring to defraud various international organizations. Later, they discovered that their arrests were linked to a conspiracy in which America's judicial power appeared to be entwined with the financial world. They arrested me to put pressure on the CEO of Alstom. At that time, I was close to the president. Arresting me meant arresting the CEO himself. The U.S. Department of Justice put pressure on him to cooperate. He agreed to pay the most penalties under the FCPA at that time, more than $700 million U.S. dollars. He was forced to sell 70% of Alstom to its U.S. competitor, General Electric, Frederic Pierucci said in an interview with CGTN. Alstom was once an emblem of France's industrial might, but the Americans dismembered it. The Foreign Corrupt Practices Act was enacted in 1977 as a domestic regulation to limit the corruption practices of American corporations. However, the U.S. government later discovered that this put U.S. businesses at a disadvantage in international competitiveness. It took a lot of work to make this law international. The regulation applies to any corporation that has minimal contact with the United States. This can entail contracting in U.S. dollars and sending an email through an American server. However, it appears that the measure is aimed more at European businesses than American businesses. Since the Act's implementation, 15 of the 29 firms that have paid a penalty of more than $100 million have been from Europe, with only 6 from the United States. The European Union isn't the sole objective. It is prepared to intervene on a global scale. Huo Zhengxin, a law professor at China University of Political Science and Law, stated that the United States has worldwide hegemony. I believe the United States has weaponized the American dollar, as well as the international payment system known as the SWIFT system. As a result, every corporation conducting business in the United States is subject to the monitoring of American authorities. As a result, I believe that American dominance in the economy and currency, as well as its hegemony in other spheres, secures the application of American law's long-arm jurisdiction. Corruption must be combated in all countries. However, the disparity between how the U.S. treats its own corporations and foreign companies raises an important question: how willing is the U.S. to use its legal system as a weapon to achieve its political and economic objectives? How many more corporations will fall victim to the American trap as a result of Washington's global intelligence network? In the case of Huawei, the answers to these questions are even evident. Meng's detention was part of a bigger crackdown on Huawei, a global leader in 5G technology. This time, the U.S. employed its export control restrictions as a weapon. If the United States decides to put sanctions on Iran, it appears that no other country will want to do business with the country. Otherwise, the U.S. would impose secondary sanctions. Secondary sanctions violate international law. First, it does not have any basis on the jurisdiction of the international law. And more importantly, it violates the international rule of non-intervention. The principle is enshrined by the UN Charter, according to which every country has a right to conduct affairs without the external interference, explained Huo. The U.S. attempted to depict Meng's detention as purely a legal matter. However, this was not the case from the outset. Advanced communication to the Canadian Security Intelligence Service about her arrest came from the FBI, according to a report released by Canada's spy agency. The Trump administration has immediately used Meng's detention and the Huawei problem as leverage in a tit-for-tat trade war that has lasted more than 2 years. The U.S. government is eroding Huawei's 5G dominance while making more demands in a China-U.S. trade deal by squeezing Huawei. Former U.S. Secretary of State Mike Pompeo has sought numerous times to get countries together to join the Huawei ban frontline, stating that Huawei equipment might be used for spying by the Chinese government. No evidence has ever been presented, as has always been the case. There is a lot of evidence to show that the is using law to safeguard its foreign policies and the national interest. Nowadays, the U.S. regards China as a competitor, or a challenge to U.S. interest. Therefore, it uses its long-arm jurisdiction to penalize or to prevent the development of Huawei, which is a high-tech company of China. Although France is an ally of the United States, in order to realize its economic interests, the U.S. is not hesitant to use law to impose sanctions on a French company, Huawei added. Alstom's journey has finally come to an end. Will Huawei, on the other hand, follow in the footsteps of Alstom? I sincerely hope Huawei will not be the second Alstom. I think the major difference is, from what I'm seeing, Huawei can count on the support of the Chinese government, said Pierucci.